Bickley and Marotta Mornings. Arizona Sports. The local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
The Suns swallowed a big teaspoonful of reality on Sunday, a game in Cleveland that showed just how far away they are from being a championship caliber team. So now what? Well, if you're like me, you probably want to see Jimmy Butler finagle his way to Phoenix, despite the unconscionable way he's handling his situation in Miami, because you want to push every last button and hope something turns this team into something special, because the alternative is a painful rebuild, and nobody signs up for that voluntarily. But what does it say about the leaders on the current team if they need Jimmy Butler to instill fire and culture and passion into a group that features Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who are now on their third head coach? Because nothing has compelled this team to show the urgency or passion required, and the logical assumption is that this team might be wholly uncoachable. Bottom line, we are learning the hard way that the idea of a big three is no longer a viable strategy in the NBA, and at this rate, our big three might go down as the worst that ever was. All right, today's Bickley Blast brought to you by my great friends at Chapman BMW. Make luxury attainable. Find them online at chapmanbmw.com.
That's what they told me. But it was a lot said by everybody, except for me, to tell the truth. So we'll let people keep talking like they know everything, like they have all the answers. And then sooner or later, the whole truth will come out. But until then, we'll continue to let people talk. And if I'm here, we'll get out there and play.
That is Jimmy Butler last Friday. That's when he made his return to the court for the Miami Heat in a game that he started. They lost to the Denver Nuggets. He had 18 points in that game. Look, the situation is still fluid. I am somewhat shocked. Maybe shocked is the wrong word. A little bit surprised that Jimmy Butler's back on the court. But that is Pat Riley playing hardball. It is. And come back, be with your team. I think there's still obviously a lot of stuff happening under the surface, try to make a deal happen. And I'm going to say this, that once upon a time I was on board with the Suns trying to make this work. I don't want this to happen anymore.
Like I said earlier, I go back and forth daily thinking about this basketball team, because if Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, if the addition of Jimmy Butler brings some heat and fire and culture to this team, what does it say about this group that's here now, that you would need that kind of personality, that kind of alpha to get this team to care? That's what I really, really struggle with. But at the same time, the alternative is what? To just run it through with Bradley Shoelaces Beal? And yeah, for those who are just joining us, there's an amazing story in the New York Times where Bradley Beal spends an inordinate amount of time tying his shoelaces during the game, sometimes to the team's detriment. It's another element of weirdness in a season that is off the charts.
They're not going to tie themselves.
What, are these shoes going to tie themselves, man? So, okay. So the fact that Jimmy Butler now, so for Brian Windhorst to come out and say Jimmy Butler has one option, so we're kind of back to this again. So Jimmy Butler is not giving the Heat the option to trade him to at least a contender. He's back on, I want to get my money from Matt Ishbia. Okay, so I'm with you. Part of me thinks it's really unconscionable, and this is one of the guys who has always been one of my top 10 players outside of Phoenix in the NBA, maybe even top 5 outside the NBA. I just can't believe this is how he's operating while earning $50 million a year. The NBA won't admit it, but this is a terrible look for the league.
And everybody knows it. That sometimes
everyone knows it.
Mostly petulance gets rewarded in the NBA. This was from 2 days ago. This is Brian Windhorst on the Hoop Collective podcast.
I can't emphasize this enough as somebody who with Shams Charania has been on this story for months now. Jimmy's number one focus is getting traded, preferably to the Phoenix Suns. Everything else is secondary. Not getting traded to Team X, not getting traded to Team Y, getting traded to the Phoenix Suns. And so anything that you want to bring that's rational, if it doesn't mean getting traded to the Suns, Jimmy is not going to be interested in it right now. That's one thing you got to remember out of all of that. And that is the way he is operating.
It is remarkable. The legs the story has.
Yes. And so you said something earlier, and I just wonder that the fact that this is continuing to be a thing, is this eventually going to happen? Is the exhaustion of dealing with Jimmy Butler going to lead to this going down?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you said, because I said, look, once upon a time I was on board with this, but I also thought it was impossible. Now, in the current, I'm not on board with it, but I think every day that passes, it becomes more and more possible.
We talked about this when
But again, what is it going to change? And
Well, you have a volatile mix that's not working out right now, and then you add a more volatile player than anybody on the Suns roster. And again, I'm not going to sit here and deny that Jimmy Butler has qualities that the Suns team is apparently missing, and it's evident that they're missing through 42 games, but what do you do?
You wonder if the sustained mediocrity this season is making them more or less likely to do a panic move like that. Like, do they look at it and say, we need to do something? Or they look at it and say, like, doing something won't even help this?
That's where yesterday's game comes into play. And I don't think this would be like an epiphany that the Suns had yesterday. Like, wow, Cleveland's really good. We're not on their level. Maybe we should just... Maybe we should change course or stay the course that we're on instead of going down this road.
Yeah.
Because Brian Windhorst said it. Butler's full focus is Phoenix. I think Phoenix's full focus is Butler.
I think you're right. Because they will not look in the mirror at what this really is. And they think there's a magic panacea out there, and Jimmy Butler is that guy. And I do agree that the alpha categories he would bring would help this team, but it just makes me really wonder what's preventing this team. When you take a look, if you go back to that Bill Simmons podcast when he just eviscerated the Phoenix Suns from top to bottom, he brought up a very interesting question. His question was, when was the last time Kevin Durant was part of a happy basketball team?
He did bring it up.
And so you wonder about that, because Devin Booker and Kevin Durant decided that they didn't want Monty Williams. At least that's what the reporting was. Frank Vogel wasn't good enough, and it doesn't look like they're responding to Mike Budenholzer. I mean, if you look at the up and down nature of these performances, and again the recurring stuff that is not getting fixed, what are you gonna do? Bring in another head coach? Now that would be insanity.
And people might say, "Oh, big deal. Happiness doesn't matter. Happiness matters. Name the last NBA championship team that wasn't happy."
That's
or name one ever that wasn't happy.
Because when you look at a team like Cleveland, they play with their hair on fire. The ball whips around the gym. They're running, they're cutting, they're setting picks. You look at Houston, any of the teams that that play to a standard, there's a connectivity there that you can see. There's a speed and a force to their game. There's a command to what they're doing that you don't see here. You see guys lollygagging sometimes, getting back on defense. Lollygagging. And the turnovers and the cross-court passes, I don't know how many times you have to do it before you realize, you know what, I'm not doing that again.
And as soon as things start to go wrong in a game, they just abandon everything. They stop shooting threes. They stop moving the ball. It becomes a lot of one-on-one ISO play from the stars, and that's it.
Yeah, they shot 26 three-pointers yesterday.
3 only in the third quarter.
Against a team that was playing zone.
And they did that again. So they're coming back down. They're coming back to the team that they want to be, not the team they're being asked to be. And that's where the word uncoachable comes up. Because
they looked like last year's team.
Yeah, they do. They do. And so I don't know if Jimmy Butler solves it, but I think you're right, Vinny. I think they're still in mad pursuit of Jimmy Butler, the way he is in mad pursuit of their money.
And, I mean, again, I don't have any inside information, but look at the story the way it is. There's a good argument to be made. The Suns believe that Jimmy Butler does fix this. That does put them in the right direction. There's no proof to that. It's got to be a feeling, nothing else. There's no way you could know. If it doesn't work out, what have you done? You've basically prolonged the agony at that point. If the reports of Jimmy Butler wanting to come here because he knows he'll get a contract extension here, you've just added 2 years to this period of basketball that has been really unsatisfying for the fan base.
Right. And then you would have another untradeable contract, because if you give Jimmy Butler 2 more years at 100-something million. What are you going to do with that?
You added 2 years to the window, but the window's broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
My window.
It's broken.
It's broken.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm an emotional mess when it comes to this team. I really, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
You got a lot of company.
Thanks for watching Bickley and Marotta. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.